Does anyone remember when YA movies ruled the world? All those movies about a boy or a girl with some special ability that changes the world and defeats some evil authoritarian government? The genre eventually fell out of favor, like all do, but one series has stood the test of time, even scoring itself a prequel this year, The Hunger Games. Many love this series for its strong characters, stunning imagery, and profound commentary on what a post-apocalyptic America could look like. Jennifer Lawrence played Katniss Everdeen to perfection. The first two films contained some killer set pieces, and even if the last two films sort of fumbled, the series made nearly $3 billion in the box office, and has every single film fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. Being the pop music nerd that I am, my favorite aspect of the series has always been its soundtracks. The first three installments had solid records that contained certified pop hits from legendary pop acts, and a few deep cuts worth mentioning. And these records added texture to the films, despite the songs not being used in the movies themselves. I partially blame Mockingjay Part 2's underperformance in the box office on it not having a sick soundtrack. With the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes coming out very soon, containing a new Olivia Rodrigo song, I did want to make a video about these soundtracks. Before I start, full warning, this video contains some spoilers for the books and the movie series. If you have not seen the original 4 movies or read their books, turn back and go see them and read them. But I'll also give you an extra warning before I talk about the newest book and film. Kickstarting The Hunger Games. Suzanne Collins' The Hunger Games was published in September 2008. Collins had been inspired while channel surfing and seeing both reality TV and the Iraq War on her screen. Drawing on gladiatorial games as well as her father's service during the Vietnam War, Collins crafted a timeless dystopic tale about a young woman who sacrifices herself for her sister to compete in an annual battle royale held by an oppressive capital. It was released to critical acclaim and eventually became a bestseller. Collins was courted by 30 to 40 different producers for the film rights before settling on Nina Jacobson's Color Force, who chose Lionsgate to distribute the film. Lionsgate had wanted this project so bad that they actually raided other movies' budgets to offer their biggest budget to date. Gary Ross was chosen to direct the film, and eventually Lawrence and Hutcherson were cast in key roles before settling production in North Carolina in 2011. Promo for the film started relatively quickly after a trailer in November of that year, just 2 months after wrapping. On December 22, 2011, Taylor Swift tweeted lyrics along with a cryptic message. The day after Christmas, the first single off the Hunger Games soundtrack, Safe and Sound by Taylor Swift and the Civil Wars, dropped on iTunes. This folksy ballad was a huge success, peaking at 30 and even winning a Grammy for Best Song for Visual Media. It was critically lauded for its melancholic Appalachian atmosphere. In retrospect, many would actually say that the song helped lay the foundations for Swift's future Album of the Year winning Folklore and its underrated sister Evermore. The song itself was inspired by Swift reading the novel and Katniss's compassion for other characters throughout the novel. I will never forget those fan theories interpreting the music video, which featured Swift roaming throughout a cemetery, to her evoking the ghost of Katniss's sister Primrose, roaming through the woods years long after the novels. That stuck with me. Safe and Sound was just one of 16 tracks that made up the official companion record to the film, The Hunger Games Songs from District 12 and Beyond. Produced and curated by T-Bone Burnett, this compilation definitely leaned more folk than pop and contained yet another Swift collaboration, Eyes Open, which peaked at 19 on the charts. Eyes Open had been a more straightforward pop rock anthem produced by Nathan Chapman, which aligned pretty closely with the Speak Now pop rock sound. The song thematically fits Swift's rising profile as a star at the time, on top of Katniss's arc in The Hunger Games. The record was positively received and debuted at number 1 on the album charts. Other noteworthy tracks that I actually did love at the time were Abraham's Daughter by Arcade Fire, who actually helped compose the iconic Panem theme, Horn of the Plenty, which plays when people die. I also really dug The Ruler and the Killer by Kid Cudi. Catching Fire and Lord. The first Hunger Games movie opened to $152.5 million and finished at nearly $700 million worldwide. So yeah, Lionsgate definitely rushed into production on Catching Fire. That sequel dropped just 18 months after the original, with a new director, new writers, and a new music supervisor to oversee the record. The whole mantra of Catching Fire's film adaptation was bigger and better. Catching Fire saw Katniss and Peeta drawn back into the games due to a quarter quell. These versions of the games see former victors compete against each other. other. So it did make sense to shift away from the understated folk sound towards a more blockbuster pop soundtrack. Alexandra Patsava is a music supervisor who has worked on many big hits, including fellow YA franchise Twilight, was brought in. Catching Fire's soundtrack was not cohesive, but it had heavy hitters like Coldplay, Christina Aguilera, Sia, The Weeknd, Imagine Dragons, Lorde, and Ellie Goulding. The lead single Atlas by Coldplay was their first song in 2 years, and it did pretty well internationally. The second single, Elastic Heart with Sia, was a more interesting run. The movie version, which also featured The Weeknd and Diplo, did not make any noise, but when she released it as a solo version in 2015, that song actually hit the top 20 across different countries. A final single, Remain, a Christina Aguilera ballad penned and produced by Ryan Tedder. That single didn't chart strongly, but it was critically praised. I personally thought that it was a good reflection of Katniss's arc throughout the film and contained some of Christina's best vocals. Other noteworthy tracks that I did dig re-listening to were Mirror by Ellie Goulding. This one's definitely an extension of her seminal Halcyon sound during the time. Ellie Goulding really drew on the Girl on Fire imagery from the novel. Devil May Cry is a really underrated folk-flavored deep cut. The Weeknd has so much range as an artist. I still cannot believe his version of Elastic Heart did not chart. My personal favorite and probably the most enduring track off that soundtrack was Lorde's cover of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Some hate it for stripping away the positive sound of the song, but then again, it's a more dramatic, atmospheric, dark sound that fits the dystopic nature of the Hunger Games. It really fit the world of Panem and pointed out how heavy the lyrics were. Lorde's contribution had resonated so much that they brought her back in a bigger capacity. Mockingjay Part 1. To this day, Catching Fire is still considered the peak film of the franchise, hitting highs both at the box office and critically. I mean, that arena that's literally a clock, we would not have Midnights without it. Prior to filming, Lionsgate announced that the final film, Mockingjay, would be split into 2 films, which many did not like. Even the director Francis Lawrence would come to regret it. In an attempt to keep the heat on the franchise, Lionsgate tapped Lorde to create and curate music for Part 1. Lorde was invited to set, where the director remarked her ability to really understand what they were going for. She was actually on tour, and she actually completed many of the pieces remotely, gathering artists including the legendary Grace Jones and Duran Duran frontman Simon Le Bon. One thing she did not want to do was make it seem like a mixtape, and she really did go for a downbeat sound. Our first taste of the record came with the Yellow Flicker Beat, a track that was meant to mirror Katniss's ascent to becoming the Mockingjay. This track also served as a coda to Lorde's successful pure heroine era. It starts out pretty meditative before exploding into a chorus that's undeniably Lorde. This song peaked at 34 and was nominated for a Golden Globe. The track listing dropped in October, with track 5 being a mystery as it had not been finished. Ariana Grande would unveil her involvement with a collaboration with Major Lazer called All My Love. The record officially dropped on November 17th. It debuted at 18 on the Billboard 200 with 21,000 units sold. This record is probably the strongest Hunger Games record. I thought Lorde did a really good job encapsulating the movie's themes and ideas. The explosive opener Meltdown by Stromae, with Lorde, Pusha T, Q-Tip, and Haim, it felt so massive, and its lyrics alluded to the hidden District 13 that had been leading the rebellion. One of my personal favorites, Dead Air by Churches, speak to the voiceless citizens of Panem and how little they can actually do but hold on to an idea, and that production is gorgeous. Tove Lo's Scream My Name definitely fit her Queen of the Clouds sound, but it was also an introspective look into Katniss's psyche. But my absolute favorite has to be Kingdom by Charlie XCX and Simon Le Bon. Produced by Ariel Rechtshaid and Rostrum, this ethereal ballad is one of Charlie's most underrated tracks. Her vocals in particular are so airy and light. Charlie and Rostrum had written these lyrics after getting wasted at a Miley Cyrus concert. Charlie would infamously reveal in 2020 that she had never read the books or seen the movie, and that Lorde had sent her an email with a summary and a vibe, yet I think it's amazing that she managed to capture the emotional turmoil and martyrdom of Katniss. She's brilliant. A second close favorite of mine is All My Love, co-written by Lorde, Moo, and Grande. It's a killer dancehall electro-pop anthem. I'm shocked it never got a push by the record company. It's very 2014 pop. A little bit jarring, but a necessary burst of poptimism on a dark record. The synth drops and how they cut the air gives it an edge. Tinashe's The Leap has to be an underrated cut that's heartbreaking and speaks to the emotional divide between Peeta, who had been captured by the Capitol, and Katniss. Grace Jones' Original Beast is another standout I don't really hear anyone talk about. It's very avant-pop. A rework of Lord's original cut by Kanye West adds an atmospheric, cinematic feel to her song that really does feel like a reflection of the series stronger than the original, which felt more like pure heroin 2.0. The original version of the album ended on a gorgeous cover of Ladder Song by Lorde, which she said was from the perspective of a higher being. When I say original, the record was reissued when Jennifer Lawrence's rendition of The Hanging Tree became an unexpected smash hit. This track had been written by Collins herself, with composition by the Lumineers, produced by James Newton Howard, who composed the series score. It's a very folksy Appalachian lullaby ballad. In the books, it's an old song that Katniss learns from her dad, which helps unbrainwash Peeta. In the movie, the rebellion makes it their battle cry. Jennifer Lawrence did not want to actually sing the song herself. She hated her voice and she wanted Lorde to sing it so that she could lip sync to it, but the director said no. I argue that it's actually one of the best parts of a rather mid-movie. The song would go on to peak at 12 on the Hot 100, making her one of the few Best Actress winners to ever chart. I'll never forget the Rebel remix by Michael Gazzo, which turned the song into an electropop banger. Some hate it, but I do like to imagine it as the version the Capitol made to make fun of Katniss and monetize her pain. Many assume that this would be the last time we'd ever hear of the Hunger Games or the Hanging Tree, but it would come back with a vengeance. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The fourth and supposed final Hunger Games movie, Mockingjay Part 2, did not have a soundtrack. I still think that that's why it's actually the lowest grossing film in the series. This series ended for a while, occasionally trending here and there. It wasn't until 2020, with the release of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that the Hunger Games would come back to the film world. And my very first thought was who would be on the soundtrack. And here it is, the last spoiler warning: turn back now or forever hold your peace. This installment goes back 64 years before the first book to give us the backstory on series antagonist President Snow. It covers his time as a mentor during the 10th games, which have been removed from history. Snow falls for Lucy Gray Baird, the female tribute for District 12 that year. Lucy Gray is actually a nomadic musician. She's the in-universe author of The Hanging Tree, which Katniss would later sing to taunt Snow. Rachel Zegler, an actress most known for her singing ability, would be cast as Lucy Gray. Her version of The Hanging Tree served as the first single off the companion album. In a sharp contrast to Lawrence's version, there's a more theatric yet acoustic delivery. In the novel, Gray's talent as a musician was partially why she survives, winning sympathy and sponsors, and Snow's heart to a degree. The companion album is definitely going to have a couple of folksy tracks as well as Lucy Gray's original song numbers. But no real Hunger Games soundtrack is complete without a pop star. And this time they got Olivia Rodrigo, who I argue in an alternate universe could have really played Lucy Gray. You know, she wasn't a mega pop star. Lucy Gray's journey as a character and her ultimate impact on Snow is captured in Can't Catch Me Now. It's a very dark folk ballad written by Rodrigo and Dan Nigro. For those of you in the know, this track correlates with the ending of the novel, which sees Lucy Gray betrayed by Snow, who tries to kill her to cover his crimes. There's ambiguity to whether or not Lucy Gray survives, but she leaves a very haunting fury that comes back to haunt him when Katniss comes into his life. Snow sees Lucy Gray in Katniss's fire that eventually burns him alive. Can't Catch Me Now directly plays with the dense imagery of Lucy Gray escaping into the woods one last time. Rodrigo really read the book and did her homework. This is not a guts reheated leftover. As for me, I'm actually an optimist who believes that somehow against all odds that Lucy Gray had made it out of Panem, or at least went to District 13. But this song makes me think otherwise. Like, there are many who believe that she perished due to the elements, but her impact on the overall story remains. It's the ambiguity of whether or not Lucy Gray survives or not that makes this song so powerful, and also makes the film and the book powerful. I saw the movie, it was really good. I'm not sure if the series should or will continue, but the Hunger Games series so far remains one of the most impactful modern American series to date. I argue that it's actually the crown jewel of YA literature and film, something that remains relevant to uncertain times that we face ahead of us. The soundtracks themselves all had impact to a degree. I argue that they're actually the best marketing that the series ever had. That's really what got me interested in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes in the first place, seeing a series that freely really did touch the landscape of pop, and seeing that influence filter back into the characters and the story feels very full circle to me. I don't think I've seen this level of synergy in a film series, to be honest. And I don't think we ever will see a series that uses pop music the way The Hunger Games does. And that's a wrap! Thank you so much for tuning in to my Hunger Games video. I've always wanted to make a series about movies and the intersection between artists that I've been covering and this movie stuff. I had to make this video. A quick shout out to my members. Thank you so much for supporting my channel. A big shout out to my subscribers. Comment below what your favorite Hunger Games soundtrack cuts were. Let me know what you thought about the new movie. Try to be very considerate about spoilers, though after the movie comes out, you know, it's open season. I hope to see you next video, and thank you again.